Hello and welcome to ZipTied. This is my 1970-ish Porsche 914. I've been working on this thing from the ground up to make it a badass time attack car. Now, last episode, we made some carbon fiber scoops. This time, I'm going to fit those up and I'm going to make some scoops for the front. On top of that, a bunch of other little things like finishing the splitter. So, without further ado, let's get into it. And I'm starting with where I left off last episode. Last time I built my first carbon fiber pieces ever, and now they need some trimming to fit over their respective coolers. Drilling into corners is an easy trick to clean up cut lines and allow for some space for your trimmers to actually fit into. These parts still look awesome and they fit perfectly over the coolers. The intercooler duct looks totally sweet and the oil cooler does too, but I just haven't installed it yet. Last time I spent 2 weeks making 2 carbon fiber parts. This time I'm cutting that time in half. The radiator needs ducted air and I need an inlet and outlet for air to travel. The bottom side is going to be less than ideal because it has a really sharp corner to make, and the top will be fine. I think it'll be fine anyway. As I construct the ducts out of foam, the biggest thing to focus on is gradual curves and expansion from an inlet and outlet 1/3 the size of the radiator. That's often easier said than done. I'm sure you could do some elaborate measuring to locate the outlet on the foam, but I instead just cut a slot in my mock-up hood and transferred it like that. Now here's an idea that seemed better than it was. I cut a bandsaw blade in half so it just became a saw blade. I then contracted Jeremy to hold the other side so we could lumberjack the foam off the mold, but this did not work well at all, and it also just cuts your fingers really badly. With everything shaped up, I dropped a perfectly shaped piece of foam down the hole so it would line up perfectly with the hole. The lower was shaped by making a template of the area under the radiator. A framing square gave me a good straight line to match up the nose. This template was then transferred to foam and cut out. The part I really like about this mold are the notches I made to allow space for the splitter mounts. Packaging like this is just so cool to see when it's all done. With the nose back on, I located the foam for the inlet and glued it on. To make it a little nicer to look at, I added these blending pieces that kind of smooth out the look. Just like last time, I added a piece of foam for flanges and space for me to cut down more exact. On the radiator outlet, I put a piece of cardboard to make a flange for the carbon to stick to. The reason I didn't use foam here was because the hood is a curved surface and foam doesn't like to curve, where cardboard does. I then mixed up some epoxy and sealed up the molds. And it's at this point I made a major mistake. Last episode I painted the molds after the epoxy. I said I didn't think it really was necessary. Well, you'll see that it really was necessary. But regardless of the foreshadowing, the molds are ready for some carbon. I figured all this part-all wax and PVA release film would protect the epoxy resin and, more importantly, the Bondo and foam underneath, but it did not. I made sure to really beef up the corners on this piece because of the way it will mount to the radiator, and hopefully add support for the center of the hood. It must be said, I really got better at the peel ply on this part. And my layup skills are really improving too. Now it's just time to make the second part. I'm not even going to kid myself on these molds, they will not be reused, though I'd like to. Instead, I skillfully placed some screwdriver holes and filled them with acetone to help speed up the melting process. With the foam out, these pieces came out fantastic. On the outside. The inside, as I foreshadowed, came out terrible. The good news is most of it can be sanded out, and some water helps show what these things can look like after some sanding. In the middle of making molds, I began the process of finishing the tree on the inside of the nose and working towards making it one piece. The frame has been in some rain and has really gotten rusty, so I sent it over to the sandblaster and got it cleaned up. With the tree back from blasting, I can finally get it fully welded up. Some of the pieces fell off as they were only tacked on, so I clecoed them back to the nose and squared it all away. I discovered an issue when TIG welding a sandblasted part, and that is that there is sand everywhere and it makes your weld really spattery. There's not much you can do, but it sucks anyway. A treatment of black paint will help preserve the whole tree, especially where I won't be able to spray later. While the paint dried, I sanded the nose wherever the frame touches because it's getting glued on and then glassed in place. To glue in the tree, I'm using 3M panel bond. It's a urethane adhesive that's super badass at bonding anything you can think of together. With the panel bond applied, the tree gets riveted to the nose to hold it tightly in place while it dries. And sometimes that's easier said than done. Once the panel bond is dry, the rivets will get drilled out. The nose is made of fiberglass, and to reinforce the tree, I got a roll of chopped strand mat to cover the mounting plates. I cut it into strips and mixed up some polyester resin to glue it in. Polyester is a super common resin for fiberglass, and way cheaper than epoxy. Polyester is stiffer than epoxy, but way less flexible and durable. Carbon doesn't work super well with polyester resin, so I've only used epoxy with it. Fiberglass is applied the same exact way as carbon, so it's a breeze to use and way cheaper at the same time. It's now time to combine the nose with the carbon pieces I made, so I began with trimming down the excess carbon. With both ducts on, I put on the nose and it wasn't even close to all the way on. The duct was hitting the nose heavily, so it's getting trimmed down even more. Once the nose was all the way on, the duct needed some extra carbon to seal up the hole. But this time I tried a new approach and used packing tape to protect the nose from the carbon I'm laying against it. I still used some wax just in case it didn't work. Luckily, once it was dry, the packing tape worked great and it released super easily. Now that everything is fitted, the nose and hood are getting bonded together to become one piece. Just like the tree, some temporary rivets are installed on the alignment plates. I probably should have cut the flange out of the fenders before I riveted everything together, but I didn't. To bond the hood to the fenders, I'm using 3 layers of fiberglass. The first layer is chopped mat, and the following 2 layers are fiberglass woven mat that I found in a 4-inch wide roll. Once everything cured, I removed the rivets and it did not fall apart. Now as promised, I'm going to finish up the splitter. It has an ugly area by the ramps that extend beyond the bumper line and it just looked bad. So I found a sheet of 16th inch ABS plastic to cover up the whole top and give it a finished look. This stuff isn't super heavy, but I could definitely use the nose weight anyway. But before I can install the ABS, I have to mount all the splitter rods and reinforcement to the blade. I'm using 9 Lives Racing splitter cables to help distribute the load. These are nice because they will allow some movement in the splitter so things aren't broken if I hit a curb or a medium-sized lizard. I found these nice 1/4-20 yokes on McMaster-Carr to mount to the chassis tabs. I mocked up the cables and placed a mock-up of the radiator duct opening on the splitter because I hadn't actually finished it yet when I filmed this. Ah. To give some center support where I can't run a cable, I made these braces out of 0.65 1-inch aluminum box and some 1-inch by 1/8 inch thick aluminum angle. I tried putting this as far forward as I could without running it into the nose. Next comes the aluminum angle and I'm mounting it by the chassis mounts. This should help kind of prevent some twist in the blade. But since I'm here, I might as well clean up the chassis mounts a bit too. Everything's mocked up and drilled, so now I get to take it all apart. I made these templates out of cardboard so I would cover up the ugly part of the ramps with ABS. I ran a straight edge along the splitter ramp so I could make a template that followed the curve of the ramp. Then everything gets sanded flat so the ABS would sit nice. I also hit the ABS with some 40 grit sandpaper so it would adhere much easier to the wood. And I broke out the panel bond once again to adhere the two together. I used the hammer to help squish the panel bond to the ABS and plywood. That way, they'd adhere maybe a little bit better. And after curing all night, I trimmed the excess off of the splitter, made my marks for my templates, and cut out the splitter ramp area too. I block sanded the edges to give it a smooth appearance, and then I did the arduous task of drilling all the holes through the ABS and then deburring all of them. Now I thought I pressed record when I assembled the splitter blade, but I didn't, so poof. It really looks freaking cool like this. The only thing I did record was reinstalling the support cables. All of the bolts were cut flush so it has a more finished appearance and better airflow. I use stainless bolts and T-nuts so they don't rust. Be very mindful of where the cut off pieces of bolt go if you do this because they will melt into the ABS and burn the wood. As you can see, there may be a ton of hardware in this thing, but it's totally flattish. And the area around the ramps looks way better than it did before. Looks are important, but there's only one true way to test a splitter. Standing on it. I'd say this is a pass. Even with it 1 inch off the ground, it didn't touch when I stood on it. It's not perfect in twisting, which I think is kind of going to be remedied by beefing up the chassis mounts a little, but I'm overall super happy. But before I hit the B-roll, there's one more thing to show you. And that's these half carbon doors. I found these online in the 914 forums, and they will save me a ton of time. I call them half carbon doors because only the outer skin is actually carbon, the inside is just fiberglass. That being said, they are considerably lighter than stock doors. The stock doors weigh about 26 pounds each when they're stripped down, while these only weigh 14. And I'm going to strip them down even more from where they are now, so they'll be even lighter. So now we can officially hit the B-roll shots. Okay, so that's another very much big progress filled video. It's got about one more video probably before I can get onto real body work. Here's the deal. This car needs to be extremely presentable by August 15th, and that is coming up very fast. That's 2 months. So in that time, I want to have it painted and I want to have it running again, and that's a lot. So there's a lot coming up like in the near future. The reason why August 15th is because that is the deadline to enter into SEMA Young Guns. Now, I am still looking for a sponsor for anyone who is willing to have this as just a featured vehicle. I don't even need it in your booth. I want to be there. I want to represent somebody's company, and I think this is a great car for it. This car will be in SEMA. I can about guarantee it because I'm not going to stop. There's plenty still to do. I am very tired. Thank you as always for watching. I enjoy responding to comments and everything all the love that people show for this car. It really does keep me going a little bit, even when I am really very tired, but I can sleep when it's December. Thank you for watching.